Hello, future people! Welcome to Getting Tabled. Jason the Bruce here, and today we're going to have a look at the rules for the Apex Predator.
You can arrange your brushes, prepare your clippers and your knives, but sometimes no matter how many tools or paints you have, it's not enough if the dice are not on your side. Sometimes you only have one choice, and that choice is to prepare for Conquest.
So, the Apex Predator. I haven't unboxed that because I don't have it. It's not here yet. But the rules are up, and I figure it's probably going to be the next purchase I'm going to make. So I'm preempting that and continuing the series with a bit of content. I'm going to have a look at the Apex Predator rules on the website. Alright, so here we are on the Parabellum website, and the keen eye among you that's been following this will realise that I'm in a slightly different area than normal when looking at the rules. When looking through this the first time, I've actually realised that the way you build an Apex Predator that's being ridden is slightly different. It's not quite as obvious, and I'm going to show you now what I mean. So, you can either have the Matriarch Queen riding the monster, or the Predator riding the monster, or you can just have the monster by itself. However, if you're just browsing your faction, what you will find is that there's no option here on how to select who's going to be riding the Predator at all. It's not on the Predator, it's not on the Matriarch Queen, it's not on the Apex Predator itself. So, what you need to do, for this example, I'm going to select the Matriarch Queen, and I'm going to select an Apex Predator. Now, under the settings for the Matriarch Queen, the important thing is we need to have Apex Master and Apex Predator selected. And now we have the Apex Predator being ridden by the Matriarch Queen. Now, rules-wise, not a lot changes, but it does make a difference to your layout. And you need to be able to link them together so that the rules match what you're actually taking. You will see here that you still have two different things listed, and that does mean that you're still going to have two different cards, but you've only got one mini on the table, and that's the important thing here. Now, the Matriarch Queen is exactly the same as the way that we've looked at her before. You could have a look through the other masteries if you would like to. Which of the cults you select is completely up to you. On your Apex Predator, the only option you have is the icon of Conquest. And that basically means that you're placing down a Conquest marker instead of what you would have been placing otherwise. So, the rules themselves. Your Apex Predator is a monster type, obviously. It's a heavyweight class. That shouldn't really surprise anybody. And it's costing you 185 points, plus your rider. We have a march of 8. We've got a volley of 1. A clash of 3. We've got 10 attacks. So this thing is a beast. Literally. We've got 12 wounds, 4 resolve, 3 defense, and no evade. It shouldn't really surprise you that it's not going to be evading. It's fairly large, and they weren't believed to be very fast. Now, abilities wise, we've got Deadly Blades. So basically what this does, when an enemy character or regiment makes an injury roll caused by this model, it adds 2 wounds to the pool instead of just 1 for every 6 that you roll naturally. That's quite nice. Especially if you're playing against me, because I will roll nothing but 6s because dice hate me. We've also got Cleave. Enemy regiments suffer a penalty to their defense against hits with this special rule. So that would be a penalty of 2 because it's Cleave 2. This creature is also fearless, which should be fairly obvious. It ignores the rules for terrifying and fearsome. We also have Fiend Hunter, which we've seen before. It gets to reroll failed hits against other monsters. Unstoppable means you get to re-roll your charge rolls, which we've also seen before. And Terrifying 2. Enemy regiments with contact with one or more stands with this special rule suffer -X, so in this case it's -2, to their resolve characteristics. So if we was to take his resolve just as an example, that means that would drop down to 2 instead of being on 4. So that's potentially very good. Unless, of course, what you're facing is something that also avoids, something that is also fearless. So you'd probably want to steer this thing away from the things that are fearless, just because it would make a little bit more sense strategy-wise. This thing's going to do a lot of damage. Like, a lot of damage. So the only question is, what, if anything, changes with the Predator? What do we gain with the Predator that we don't gain with the Matriarch Queen? So, here we are. We've got both of them laid out. I was originally looking here to see what the difference was between the whole lot, but realistically, the actual Predator itself doesn't change much. It's just who's on it that matters. So, I'm going to have a look at them and then try to figure out where we think things are going to line up. So, the Predator has 1 more in volley than the Queen does. But you'll also notice that the Queen's defense is slightly higher than the Predator's. So that's fairly even-ish, and you could say, well, it depends on how you're going to be looking at things. But there's another difference. If you take them as your Warlord, then you want to take your Supremacy ability into account. With the Predator, your regiment may re-roll charge rolls this turn, which won't actually help with the Predator, with the Apex Predator much, because it already gets that. In addition, light regiments add 3 to their charge distance, medium adds 1, heavy regiments add 1 for each engaged stand of that regiment to any impact hits they make. That could actually change things a little. But the Matriarch Queen gives you to the last breath. Select a friendly regiment within 8 of this character stand. That regiment heals 3 wounds. Each regiment may be the target of to the last breath only once each turn. Personally, I think this is going to be a lot more useful than the other. Specifically for the Apex Predator. Because it's got a lot of wounds, it's cost you a lot of points, you want it to last as long as possible. If you have other things with her, obviously they're going to be affected as well. But if we're talking specifically about the Apex Predator, I think to the last breath is going to be more useful to you. Specifically talking about that, not your overall strategy. Depending on how you want to strategize, could easily sway you both ways. Neither of these options are bad. I'm only talking in context to the Predator if it was by itself.